Jim Mahalik with Sentinel Technologies, and I'm with the Technology Area Design Group, and today we're going to talk about the supply chain. Welcome back. Normally I reserve these talks for the architects, the engineers, and some of the project managers in the construction industry. Today I think I'm going to be talking more to the end users, but I invite that first group to listen in carefully because I think I've got some good information that you can impart on your own clients. I'm going to talk about the supply chain crisis and how it's really affecting technology. In some ways it's potentially very, very bad, so I wanted to talk about what you should expect to see. I'm still kind of astonished when I find some of our clients are asking me about, well, how bad is it, and is this really going to affect me? And the answer is absolutely yes, and it is bad. So I wanted to talk about how bad it really is. So yes, it's widespread. It's affecting every industry. It's affecting every manufacturer, every installer, every distributor. It's affecting all of the end users, and it doesn't matter what your vertical market is or what your particular industry sector is. It's impacting you. I know that you're used to probably purchasing equipment, through the web or through your regular channels, and maybe you haven't done that in a while. But if you haven't done it in the last few months, you're going to find that, so to speak, the shelves are pretty empty. Now, how the industry is responding to this is that manufacturers are taking the orders and they're putting you in a queue based on when your order was placed. So there's a line of people ahead of you, and as soon as you place your order, there's a line of people behind you. As soon as that piece of equipment is manufactured or comes in or goes through distribution, it goes to the next person in line. Now, what that means is, one, is you're going to want to place those orders fairly quickly. So if you know that you're going to be moving to a new location or relocating or expanding your footprint, you're going to need, say, network switches, you're going to need more conference room equipment. Try to get that order placed as quickly as you can. Even if you're not 100% sure you're going to need it, at least get in line. Now, number two concern that I have for you is don't get out of line. So one of the things that we're being asked is, well, what if we switch from this distributor to that distributor? What if we went from this manufacturer to a different manufacturer? We use product B instead of product A. Well, what will happen certainly, is that you're taking yourself out of line and putting yourself at the end of another line. So potentially a much, much longer line. Really, any piece of equipment that's made, whether it's hardware, doesn't matter what type of software runs on it, if it plugs in and it routes data right now, there's a shortage. So we have to accommodate for it. Now, there's four things that are all intertwined as to what the impact is. Number one, cost. Costs are going up. Now, costs can either go up because supply goes down or demand goes up. We're in a very rare situation now where we're seeing both. So the amount of hardware that's out there that you can purchase for your new site, it's just not there. But also, as we're seeing, as conferencing and working at home is going up, the demand for that is going up. So that's a double hit that you're taking there. So the costs, at least in the last 6 to 8 months, pretty much every manufacturer, we're seeing a 10 to 15% increase over what you would have paid. So keep that in mind. Two, another problem is that substitute products are drying up very quickly. Every so often, your distributor, your installer will call and say, hey, I know you've been waiting 3, 4, 5, 6 months for these displays or for that type of laptop or for that type of switch. We just found out that a truck has come into this particular warehouse. It should have some, Class B or Class C type products. If your needs aren't particularly specific, maybe we can substitute some of those. That can work, and it has been working. The problem is, if you take longer than a day to tell that individual, yep, we want those, they're going to be gone because someone else is going to grab them first. And we're seeing that even for obscure brands whose names you've never seen before. They come in, they go out, often the same day. Number three, temporary solutions. Temporary solutions can be bad, as I'm sure you've experienced that. Sometimes a temporary solution has the unfortunate result of becoming your permanent solution. So maybe we're doing a conference room and we don't have the display we want, we don't have the connectivity that we expected. Let's get something in there, let's just cobble something together, at least get it working. After 3, 4, 5 months of your user base using that, they're going to eventually say, well, I guess this is the permanent solution. They're going to complain about it, they're not going to like it, but by the time it comes to change that out, they're not going to be too receptive to it. Maybe they're just going to resign themselves to working with it the way it is, which is not what you paid for, not what you expected, not what your organization needs. So again, temporary solutions can often become bad permanent solutions. And the fourth one, and in some ways this is probably the most concerning to me, is this isn't just AV equipment, it isn't just security cameras or access points or anything like that. It's the actual data infrastructure. So your switches, your firewalls, your routers, these are disappearing. And if you think about what that really means is, you could be moving into a new site that has no network, no backbone, no communications. Effectively, that makes you no different than a warehouse. And we want to be very, very cognizant that that problem is only increasing. It's not getting any better in the near future. So be braced for that. Now, what are the causes of this? Well, everybody's got their pet theories as to what's causing the supply chain issue. There really are fundamentally three causes for it, and they worked from the outside to the inside over time. So originally, it was the manufacturers, especially in the Pacific Asia area. They shut the factories down. They were particularly hard hit by the virus. They closed down for weeks, months, and chips were not being manufactured. Critical pieces of the circuitry were not being made. So we learned to kind of live with that. We looked for alternate solutions. We looked for warehouse supplies of older model chips and things that we could put in. That helped a little bit. But then, if you remember, we had distribution issues. So now we're working right to the shores of our country to where, well, they're potentially on a boat that's floating out in the Pacific, or they're stored in some holding area of some import customs area. We can't really get those in. They're out there. We just can't get them loaded onto a truck and shipped over. Well, we seem to have solved those problems. Things are starting to go again. Intermodal facilities are increasing their output and efficiency. But now we're facing the third problem, which is a labor shortage. Everybody, again, has their theories as to why we don't have the necessary labor, but the product shows up at the factories, the raw materials, there's no one to physically put that together. And increasingly, we're starting to see that there's a pattern to it, that really fundamentally, they cannot get the skilled labor to put these things together. It takes too long to train people to get these things built, especially to technology specs, which are pretty exacting. So those are our three problems. They're getting closer to home, but unfortunately, they're also getting larger because the labor problem is one we really don't quite yet know how to solve. I'm sure your own internal recruiting people or your HR folks can tell you the difficulties that they're having in trying to get non-technical labor even. So are there any solutions? Well, there's about four you could hope for here. One, consider carefully as you're migrating your technology, look for a cloud-based solution. Security systems in particular, in the last 10 or so years, have really been ready to go to the cloud. Your video from your cameras can be pushed right out to a third-party group that can do it. Your access control solutions can be stored off-site. A lot of your data, your video, all of your file transfers can be done through third parties. Maybe you don't need all of the huge amount of infrastructure that you used to have. So if there's a cloud-based solution out there for whatever you're using, consider strongly using it, at least for the next couple of years. Another thing that we're saying is the reuse of old equipment. Now, 10, 15 years ago, it was a very simple prospect. If you were moving your organization to a new location, you would do a hard cut. So on Friday night, you would shut everything down in the computer room or in your technology area. You would have your techs work till 2, 3 in the morning, taking everything out of the racks, undoing all the cabling, getting it on a truck, driving it across town to the new location, unpacking it, putting it back in racks, recabling it, turning it all up, and hoping that all of the connectivity resumed and that all of your circuitry to the outside was already in place. Obviously, there was a huge amount of risk with that. There's a lot of potential jeopardy that can happen. So in the last 10 or 15 years, we started to do these kind of virtual cutovers. And this makes a lot more sense. You tell your general contractor that you need your computer room and your closets ready a few weeks before you move in. The IT department orders the switches and the gear and the routers and the firewalls. It all arrives. They test it, they configure it, they burn it all in, they take it over, they set it up, they cable everything. And then you move into your new site, everything's up and running and tested. Then they go back and power down the old equipment and pack it up and recycle it or sell it or whatever they do with it. And obviously that's a lot safer for your business and keeps the continuity going. But maybe we need to rethink that. because we cannot get new switches, it might make sense to plan for that type of cutover where we take our old equipment, send it over to the new site, set it up on the weekend, do kind of a hot cut, and at least until the new equipment can arrive, you're working on your old equipment. A little bit riskier, but better than having no equipment whatsoever. And then, when that equipment does come, in potentially 12 months or more, then your IT department can shut everything down on a long weekend, do a second cutover where they put in the new equipment, get everybody up and running, and then they take the old equipment. And then, here's a thought, you can potentially sell that old equipment to another party where maybe they didn't plan ahead like you did, and now they need switches and routers. They're old, they're no longer supported by the manufacturer, but at least it can keep them going. Now, a third option is BYOD. This really helps more with the AV end of it. So, we'll design a very nice conference room with built-in Zoom or team conferencing, and everybody is all excited because the whole room becomes alive and it's a conferencing space, except that is also equipment we cannot get right now. So what do you do if you need to have a large meeting in a conference room? Well, actually you do what we used to do. We bring in a laptop into the room, we attach a USB camera, some USB microphones to it, and then we run that Teams or that Zoom conference locally on the laptop. Is it perfect? No, but again, the alternative is not having that conferencing whatsoever. So remember, you're not alone in this one, so that if you're taking these kinds of shortcuts and these kind of patched together solutions, yeah, the quality is not going to really be there, but everybody understands, everybody you're working with is in the exact same position you are. It's something we're just going to have to get through. And the fourth and final suggestion I have is to really set your users' expectations. I know that in the IT world and in the facilities world, it's very, very important to stress the benefits to moving to that new location, the new office space, new furniture, new carpeting, new colors, new views out the windows. Everything is going to be good. But hold on a minute. Let's talk a little bit about the reality of what's going to happen with the technology. We're not going to be completely ready to go on day one. Now, operationally, we can be up and running, but maybe some of those amenities like conferencing and maybe some of the AV experiences in this area or the town hall approach, maybe that's going to be a couple months out. And let's set our expectations with the users. Let them understand that this is temporary. This again, as I said, we don't want them to think that the temporary is the permanent solution. Let them know. Understand that maybe that in-office conferencing setup that you have where you can sit at your own desk and participate in a Teams or a Zoom call, maybe that's going to be a few months out until the new equipment arrives. Well, with that, these are the solutions that I have for you. They're not perfect, but at least they're going to try to keep you going forward. And I hope this was helpful, and I certainly hope that if you are an architect or engineer or project manager, this information was useful to you and to your clients as well. If you have any questions about any of these topics or anything that we can ever do here at Sentinel to help you, feel free to give us a call, and we'll do everything we can to make sure that it's as smooth as we can get it.